In this episode, Friren and Fern are in the Strait of Grants in the Central Lands. The place where they passed had been a dangerous place to navigate since ancient times. Objects of all kinds appeared there, and they were accompanied by an old man who talked a little about the place. The villages used to take care of it, but they gave up due to lack of people. The sea used to be crystal clear and wonderful. Friren watched and told the old man that he knew. The old man hands her a book and asks her if it's enough as a reward. Friren opens the book and sees that it is the book of the great magician Flam. Then she asks the old man if that was the only grimoire in the village. And the old man tells her yes, and she replies by saying that she accepts the request to clean. Then the old man goes up the stairs and Fern says that she thought the grimoire was a fake. Friren replies that Fern was indeed studying and congratulates her. Friren also says that there are no real Flam grimoires around, that one was just a cheap imitation. Fern wonders why she accepted the request, and Friren responds by saying that he thinks he's in trouble, and Fern doubts very much that it was only out of altruism. Friren agreed with her because she was on her own. Fern senses that it's going to be another long stay, and then Fern walks through the village where there are few people. Fern hands the girl a basket to put the bread in, and the girl thanks her very much. Friren and Fern had already been there for 3 months, and Fern had gotten used to the village. The coast is very cold at that time of year, so Fern goes out with her baskets of bread. It was winter, and Fern came to where they were spending the night and saw Friren sleeping with a book on her face, thinking about the mess she had cleaned up yesterday. Fern takes the book away from Friren's face, telling her that it's morning and that she should wake up. Friren wakes up and Fern starts to comb her hair. Then Friren eats a loaf of bread, puts her clothes on, and Fern tells her that they are going to clean the beach. However, Friren stands still. Fern simply starts practically dragging Friren to the beach. Then Fern is using her magic to levitate the pieces of wood and put them in place. She looks at Friren and sees that Friren is doing nothing. He just moves his staff and asks if Friren is sloppy by any chance. Every morning Fern wakes Friren up, feeds her, and dresses her. Fern thinks she looks like her mother doing this. Friren, looking sleepy, says that she can do everything herself. But the way she is, she would sleep late. And then Friren finally uses his magic to levitate some pieces of wood. Fern has already accepted that, and Friren apologizes. Fern asks how she did it in the group of heroes, as there was no one to look after her, but Friren slept late. Fern wondered if they weren't angry about it. Friren says they got angry once, and Fern asks the question only once. Fern thinks that her companions seem to be very tolerant. Friren says they were on a different level and Hyder would cluck his tongue from time to time. And then he remembers when she apologized to them, and they just understood. And then they continued doing what the old man had asked. We then see them warming themselves with all the wood they have gathered and burned. And then we see them having a meal and the old man asking if everything was all right with the cleaning, and Friren answers him by saying that he thought there was only a third to go. The old man asks if Friren thinks it will be ready by New Year's Eve, and Friren thinks that maybe so. The old man would be happy if everyone there could see the sunrise this time. We then see the two on the beach again, with Fern asking what the cleaning had to do with the New Year's celebration. Friren answers her by saying that the village used to watch the sunrise on New Year's Eve. They said that the image of the rising sun reflecting in the sea was beautiful. Fern wondered if Friren had seen it. Friren asked her if she thought she would wake up to see that, then told them to speed up as they didn't have much time. Then we see Friren snoring again to the point where he has even fallen out of bed, but is still sleeping on the floor. Fern again did everything she had done before, dragging her to the beach to clean up, until they went inside a broken ship and found the captain's bones. Friren finds a flask and opens it, but only finds algae. The two get together to pull out a large piece of boat that was submerged in the water. Then they gather up all the wood they've collected and burn it. Then we see that the beach is finally clean. Fern, Friren, and the old man watch and feel the breeze. Fern said that the water seemed to be clean. Friren thinks they finished well the day before anyway. It was completely different from when they started. The old man thanks him profusely and asks if Friren and Fern would like to take part in the New Year's celebration, as they would be very welcome. Friren accepts. Fern asks if she is sure, because she would have to wake up before sunrise, and that was impossible. Friren's fine, just get up early. Fern asks if she would go that far to see the sunrise. Friren honestly has no interest, so I wanted to see if it's for real. Fern doesn't quite understand. Then we see Fern sleeping and Friren with a lamp on while reading one of his books. Friren remembers her companion, the hero Himmel, asking her why she hadn't taken part in the New Year's celebration, saying that even Hyder had fallen asleep with excitement. Hyzen says that Hyder just drank too much. Friren says that they could see, so it's fine. Himmel tells her that everyone would like her to have fun too. Friren tells her that it was just a sunrise, they can't see the fun in it. Himmel disagrees because she would have enjoyed herself. And she asks Himmel how, and Himmel replies that she was like that. Then we see Friren sleeping and Fern waking up, desperate because she was asleep, saying that she would be late for the celebration. And the bewildered Friren says Mom, and Fern wonders who Friren was calling Mom. We then see Friren and Fern walking through the village. Friren wonders why she is doing this and thanks Fern. The two walk hand in hand until they reach the place where other people from the village are also. Friren looks at that sunrise and thinks that it really is beautiful, but it's not something worth getting up early to see. Then she looks at Fern and says she's going back to sleep. Fern, with a twinkle in her eye, tells Friren that he's very handsome. Friren confirms it, but makes it clear that it's just a dawn. Fern thinks Friren is having a bit of fun, and Friren says it's because she was smiling. And then Friren starts to smile, saying that she wouldn't be seeing this sunrise if she were alone. And Fern confirms it, because she wouldn't have woken up on her own. We then see another memory of the companions together, where they are looking at some gravestones, and Hyder asks if it was Eisen's family. Eisen replies that it was an old story. The village where Eisen lived was attacked by demons. Hyder kneels down and puts his hands together. Eisen asks him what he's doing, and he replies that he's praying for them. For Eisen, people disappear when they die, and Hyder says they go to heaven. Friren says that until thousands of years ago, it was common belief that they would disappear. The Anyos honor their traditions, but Friren is very skeptical about heaven, but mankind's current magical techniques can't observe souls after death, so we can't prove if it's true. For Himmel, it doesn't matter. Hyder doesn't disagree with Himmel's opinion, because Hyder doesn't care whether it's true or not either. Himmel asks, is it okay for a priest to say that? Hyder replies that whether it exists or not, he thinks it should. After all, no one would go to any lengths to live and enjoy disappearing. It would be much better to believe that they lived abundantly in heaven. Himmel then tells everyone to pray for them, and so all the companions begin to pray. 28 years have passed since the death of the hero Himmel. Fern and Friren are in the region of Brett in the Central Lands. Friren sees Hyzen near the tombstones and says he's come to spend some time with him. Hyzen replies that it's hard to believe that 30 years have passed. Friren says only 30 years old, no, and Hyzen confirms it. We then see the three of them sitting at a table having a meal, with Hyzen saying that he didn't expect Friren to have an apprentice. Friren asked Hyzen if there was anything she could do to help. Hyzen replies that Hyder had asked him something similar. Hyzen had not yet reached the end of his life. Friren asks him how he knew she was coming, and Hyzen explains that he exchanged letters with Hyder, which isn't something Friren would do because she's cold. And Friren asked again if there was anything she could do to help. Then the three of them are in the Val Basin and Friren finds it nostalgic. Eisen asks her if she has been there before, and she says yes, in the past. Eisen asks how long ago that was. Fern whispers in his ear, pre-story perhaps? Friren replies that she hasn't been alive that long, then asks Hyzen what he was looking for. And Hyzen replies that he was looking for the grimoire of the great magician Flam. Frieren says that practically all of them are fakes, but Hyzen had a clue. It was in a place where Hyder compiled and marked the records of the Flam in the Holy City. The real grimoire is somewhere in the Val Basin. Frieren should know that. Frieren was surprised to learn that that degenerate priest had done so much research. Then they start looking for a big tree, but Eisen finds it an impossible task because there are so many of them. Eisen doesn't think it would be a problem as they still have plenty of time, but Frieren says that Fern hates wasting time, so they would get it over with quickly. Fern tells them to search effectively. For Eisen, Frieren had changed because she didn't respect other people's time, and she explains that it's because Fern is scary when she's angry. Eisen says she would be careful. And then they start the search, until Fern found a large tree among the ruins to the west and showed the way. Frieren starts walking with Eisen and asks him why he was looking for Flam's grimoire, and Eisen replies that it was because he felt sorry. He felt sorry for Frieren and Himmel. That day, 30 years ago, Frieren had wondered why she had never tried to get to know Himmel better. And she thought she should tell Himmel directly because there were records in Maga Flam's grimoire that she talked to the dead. For Frieren, it's just a fairy tale, and she had no desire to see it now. For Eisen, all magic began as a fairy tale, and also, he would like to know more about the Himmel, and so Eisen had consulted Hyder. Fern says that the big tree is protected by a barrier. Frieren says that even after thousands of years, she still eats from her master's hand. And then she remembers when she said that that magical technique didn't seem reliable for protecting a house, and her master said it wasn't true by putting a barrier on a small plant, saying that it would grow and continue to protect after thousands of years. Frieren tells her that she will be dead by then. And her master confirms that she would be dead, but Frieren wouldn't be. She goes on to say that Frieren will make a big mistake one day and will want to get to know people better, asking Frieren to return to that place when that day comes, as she would guide him, and her master was the great magician Flam. Then Frieren removes the barrier and finds the real grimoire. Fern asks her how she knew, and Eisen replies that Frieren was the greatest apprentice of the great mage Flame. Eisen asks Frieren if there are any records about talking to the dead, and Frieren replies that the exact page about it has been opened for her. Frieren is surprised to think that her master knew thousands of years ago that one day she would come to this place for this purpose. In the records, Maga Flam showed that the land where the souls rested was called Oriol, the place that the people of that world called heaven. And so Eisen, Fern, and Frieren discover that heaven exists and that it is in the northern lands of End. That's where the Demon King's castle was at the time. Eisen asks Frieren to look for Oriol and talk to Himmel. Eisen played a trick on Frieren because everything he was looking for was exactly for Frieren. Then the three of them are in a carriage and they arrive at Eisen's house. Because he wouldn't go, Frieren asks if he really wouldn't want to go. And Eisen replies that nowadays he's a burden and he wouldn't go. Eisen asks if she had memorized End's route. Frieren says yes. First they would go through the Will region, then they would pass through the Regal Pass, and then they would arrive in the Northlands. Eisen apologizes to Fern because it will be a long journey. It took 10 years for Frieren and his companions to get there, and Frieren confirms that it was only 10 years.